dark, it's going to be windy, and we're going to be walking around in circles a lot. We do have flashlights that are for use. We encourage use of cell phones for flashlights. We do encourage you to take photographs, use flash photography. But before you set off your camera, please tell everybody, because getting a flash in the face in the dark room is a terrible thing. And we don't want to do that to anybody here. We want you to know that we do not have any jump scares. We do not have any axe murderers. We do not have any zombies. If you see anything like that, jump out, you turn around and run, and we're going to follow you. If any one of us or you starts floating, your head starts spinning around in circles, you stay where you're at. Try not to harm any of the artifacts, and the rest of us are going to run for it. Okay? The very last part of the tour, we are actually going into the basement. It is open 2 days out of the year, specifically for the haunted tours. Be aware there are steps going down. There are cement steps. They have been there since 1926 when this place opened, so they're a little crumbly around the edges. If you're not comfortable going downstairs, that's totally okay. Just let me know, and I'll make sure you get to someplace safe. Are we ready? Ready? Over there. I came out of the restroom one day a couple of months ago and came back up this way. I was working on this exhibit here, and this little orb went whoop, right across the hall. That's actually a good place to take photographs later on. And we are going right in through here. Excuse me. We've still got a fair amount of light in here. We'll pass out the flashlights anyway. We're going to need them here later. Not many people can say they've been kicked by a skeleton. Got a claim to fame now.
Do you need a flashlight, Mom?
All right. Oh, we've got a couple more coming in.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, please take the flashlights. Go for it.
Take the ghost radar. Sure.
Oh, ghost radar.
You have one on your the device, so
Yeah, radar.
I'll use this.
That one has both a floodlight and a standard. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
We have one more flashlight. Who wants it? Okay. This room. Thank you, sir. This room is where the paranormal specialists and paranormal investigators come and set up their base camp. They do come in multiple times a year. We just had them in, I believe it was in June. May or June was the last time they were in, so fairly recently. They set up all of their equipment, and then towards the end of the night, when they're getting ready to wrap up, they bring out a spirit box and set it up, and they ask questions, and the box scans the radio frequencies and records any answers, and they go back and they analyze it later to see if they picked up any voices, any responses, anything like that. One of the things that they do, and it's important to know because you have the flashlights here, is they have their flashlights out, they have their lights out. And if they start flickering, that means there is a spirit in the area and it's trying to communicate. Now it's important to know that this is the base camp, this is where it's set up, because we actually had an incident just right over here. There's a wash stand right here. I will try not to bump that. There's a wash stand right inside this room, right here. In the 2013 investigation, one of them, they actually had an interesting incident with this particular nightstand. I have a quote from one of the investigators. This was Paul Zaromsky. He was actually seated in this room. There's a little chair over there, and he was sitting there. And the rest of the team was out in the main area. And he said, quote, "There is a small closed nightstand located next to the doorway. It was between where I was sitting and where everyone else was inside the room. Suddenly, I heard a couple of light taps on it seemed to come from the nightstand. The team leader gave me an annoyed look from inside the room. Are you doing that? No, I said. It's coming from inside the nightstand. While the lights kept responding, the taps continued. Everyone was mesmerized. The team leader said she had never experienced that kind of physical phenomenon before. The entity identified itself as Annie. She said she was a cook at the county home and loved her work, especially making biscuits. She has some association with the kitchenware displayed in the other room. I asked Annie to tap the box 3 times, and immediately we heard. Now we think that she was here because the kitchen is right over there. Yeah. Now that happened in 2013. But something that happened just earlier this year, we had the children's summer camp, which we do. That's a new thing we started a couple of years ago. And if you look over there, there's a little plastic coin and a little glass bead. Yes, thank you, sir. After we had finished the summer camp, everything had gotten put away, and we had used these as playing pieces in some of the games. And they're small, they're good for game pieces, right? Bennett comes in, he runs the museum, comes in, unlocked the doors, no alarms had been tripped, all of the doors were locked, all the windows were closed. But handfuls of these had been taken out of the boxes and they were thrown all over this carpet. Just everywhere. He thought, okay, well that's strange. And he picked them up and put them all away. Went through his day, and as he was going through and shutting off all the lights, making sure everything was cleaned up, he double checked to make sure everything was put away. Came back the next day. No alarms had been tripped, everything was closed up, and they were out on the carpet again. This happened for about 3 weeks. Towards the end of that 3 weeks, it kind of trickled off, happened less and less, and eventually whoever it was got bored and just stopped throwing them around, stopped playing with them. If you want to come to see that here. As we are speaking of children that like to play, we are going to go towards the Victorian part.
Yeah, there's a couple. Oh, there's a couple of here.
Oh.
But there is a ghost in here.
Not getting anything.
I heard yours is still or something.
Yeah, it was the same steel. S-T-E-E-L, not S-T-E-A-L. They're not stealing anything.
Ah, you're getting words, are you?
Yeah, I got steel, like metal,
Interesting.
like on here.
All right. Everybody in? Nope, we still got a couple. Let's get nice and comfy. We can fit everybody in here. All right. Now this room is special.
It's big.
This room is closed off 363 days out of the year. It is open for 2 days, period. It is open for the haunted tours, so yesterday and today. And it's because this is a very special room. It was actually set up by the descendants of the woman that owned everything. It looks exactly like her parlor did during Victorian times. But the investigators came in, and part of what they do is they look for new spirits that have come in with some of the new artifacts that we have here. And they also check and see, make sure that the existing spirits are happy and they're not going to get angry and start doing nasty things. The first time they came in here, they started talking to a little girl. Her name is Mary. And they asked if she was okay, if she wanted anything. She said that she wanted a hairbrush. They said okay, and they went out and they bought a plastic hairbrush and they put it on the little side table over here. And they came back about 6 months later, as they do, every once in a while. And they came and they asked Mary, are you okay? Is there anything you want? And she said, I don't like that brush. It's plastic. I don't like plastic. Plastic didn't exist when I was alive. I want a wooden hairbrush. Yep, they went and got her a wooden hairbrush. Now remember I said that this room is blocked off, all except for 2 days out of the year? That hairbrush moves around that table.
Oh, wow.
We have come in actually yesterday, it was sitting over here. It was actually sitting right there yesterday. So it's moved since then. And we have had the photographers come in with the paranormal, and they've had pictures taken. They've got some orbs, and the orbs are the spirits that are floating around. And you'll have time to come back and look through again later and double check, but.
Did you just move that?
No. Mm-hmm. There's also two of them here. This is this room.
Looks like it moved again.
No, she was turning, but she wasn't anywhere near it.
Wow.
Okay.
I didn't pick it.
I thought I got something from it.
All right. Yes, please.
That was rude.
I don't want to go near the room.
It's a very nice room.
All right. And we are going to come in here.
Oh, I don't want to go in that room. Yeah, I don't want to go in that room.
Because we have a murder mystery.
Oh, I do not like this room. I do not like this room. I do not like this room. I don't like this room. Oops.
The mannequins.
Oh, wow.
All right. We have a murder mystery going on. We have clues and hidden messages.
Guns are missing. Follow the money. Follow the money.
The mannequins, one of them did it.
Which one did do it? Which money? He was holding something.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Right now, in this room.
Guns are missing.
I just have a light.
Oh, the regular light won't work on that.
Bug and ball around.
In this room, we actually have found two ghosts.
Right here.
We have the ever notorious Sheriff Hobby, who's the second one from the left on the bottom row over there in the white cowboy hat. If anybody knows anything about Sheriff Hobby, you will know that he was one of the most corrupt law enforcement officers to have ever served in the state of Florida. He was a rum runner. He was a moonshiner. He had gambling halls, illegal gambling halls. He had deals with the mafia. He was not a very upright citizen. It got to the point where they actually held a federal investigation against and had a federal lawsuit levied against him. And he was found in this room. The same night that he was found, the judge that wore that robe was also found in this room. Now Sheriff Hobby stays over there because he doesn't want to deal with Judge Foley Williams. Because Judge Williams was one of the most upstanding, upright, most honest, and fairest judges to ever serve in the state of Florida. It's my personal opinion that the judge is here to keep an eye on Hobby and make sure he's not up to trouble.
I'm guessing.
You guys figuring it out?
I'm guessing it was follow the money. It says follow the money.
Holding a gun.
Guys, just follow the money.
Follow the money.
It does say follow the money.
Seems like good idea.
Follow the money.
Those are my kids.
Yeah.
I don't see any other
My kids, so.
That's not actually part of the tour. You can't go and visit that.
It might be one of them.
We are actually going to be going around over there. Now I want you to know that as we go into that door, just inside where that door was, in 2013 when the paranormal investigators were setting up, they had a video camera on a tripod that was standing right inside that door. There was no power to it, nothing was turned on, they hadn't started their investigation, they were just doing their setup. They were all down at the other end of the hall, and one of them happened to look down, as you do when you're bored, just kind of looking around. And he saw the video camera starting to turn on the tripod, and there was nobody there. I think we're finished opening it for us. That's where we stop here. trying to get.
I know.
There is a mannequin back there, but we're not going into that room yet.
Okay. I just wanted to see. Because I'm still trying to find out who did the murder.
Cash machine.
All right. Now in this room, this one has one ghost that we are aware of, or that I am aware of, and it's the one that likes to play with the beans. In that cabinet back there towards the bottom, you can see the bins of beans. Every once in a while, we'll come in the morning and open up, and there will be beans thrown all over that carpet. Now, this has been happening for a few years, just off and on, whenever the ghost gets bored. Are there beans on the floor?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
They weren't there earlier. I came through and made sure it was all cleaned up.
An accident with me.
Now, we know that it's not rats. We know that it's not mice. The only rodents we have in the building are those ones. They're stuffed. They're not moving anything. We know it's not insects. We do have insect people that come in on a very regular basis. But that's the spirit that's in this room. That's all they do is they just play with the beans. Now I've got to get out my list here because this is one of the most haunted rooms in the building.
Oh.
Isn't that fun to know?
He's not holding anything.
He might be the mannequin.
No, he doesn't have any hands, and it said he was holding something.
Yeah, but you can hold something from your mouth.
Yeah.
Do you want to put it in the pocket?
Can we take a picture of everybody real quick? You want to do that? Yeah?
The gentleman that wore that uniform is actually in this room.
Wait a second. It's money!
Oh,
It's
there
money!
is money.
It said follow the trail of money!
You think he did it?
money!
Do you think he did it? Do you think he killed him?
No. Yes! No. There might be more money in this building.
There might be.
There's
Don't
no
know.
hand or arm.
Exactly. There's no hands.
Well, I'm gonna think he did it unarmed.
How about we check
I get it.
Could be one.
Tip your waitresses, try the veal.
Probably what he probably got tipped.
The gentleman who wore that uniform was Mr. Peter Meeks. And he's been found in this room. There's actually quite a few of his belongings here. This was his and some of the tools. I'm going to refer to my list because there's a long list. There was also Timothy, who was a naval officer. He was shot through the chest and killed as he was getting off of his ship during a raid. There are 4 children. We know that 2 of their names are Betsy and Elias. We don't know who the other 2 were, but they liked to play with their mom as she was cooking in the kitchen. There was a Native American who, through the flashing lights, made it know that he was here, but didn't want to talk. There was an African American man who worked on the steamships, and we believe that he's attached to some of the artifacts from the steamship lines that we have in this room. There was a man named David. That's all we know. His name was David. There was a man named Kenneth who took care of Bill. Bill was one of the residents that was here in the late 20s. And I'm not sure if any of you knew this, but there was also something opening the door.
Yeah. I'll get it.
Thank you.
Is that the little word supposed to be there?
Yes, that's supposed to be propping it open. There is actually a former gardener who was very afraid of the Ku Klux Klan, KKK, who still, every once in a while, just wanders around out in the grounds. You may run into him tonight, you may not. I've never run into him personally, but he's around. See, the interesting thing, though, is that the 4 children and the Native American man will follow you around the building. When the investigators were here in 2014, that's when they contacted the 4 children and the Native American. And they went through and went down into the basement And they followed them down there.
No.
Don't know if they were curious, don't know if they wanted to talk, but they'll follow you around. You want to go this direction? Now, some number of years ago, not sure exactly when, I don't actually have a date for this one, a woman came in, she was touring the museum, and it was the middle of summer, she had her sunglasses propped up on top of her head, as you do. We're all from Florida, we know. You stick your sunglasses on your head, right? And she walked in through the door that we just came through. Now, if you look up, that's the only vent in this room. It's not hooked up to any of the air conditioning right now. It hasn't been in years. The new air conditioning units were put in, I don't know, 15 years ago, somewhere in there, before she came to visit. But she swears that as soon as she walked through that door, she got a nice blast of cold air across her back, and something grabbed the sunglasses off of her head and flung them over into that far corner. In this room that we're getting ready to go into, it is small. We are going to have to squeeze. I apologize now.
Oh, it's okay.
Squeeze! There's the room. Keep squeezing.
Do you have it on?
I don't see anyone in here.
I mean that.
Not picking anything up.
Nothing yet.
This room is the Civil War and Daughters of the American Revolution room. This is actually the scene of the most recent and strongest haunting to have happened in the museum so far. This past June, Mr. Bennett came in to open up the museum, and he found that the people from the county were already here. They had come in, and he walks in, and what's going on? And I said, well, an alarm tripped. And I said, okay, well, what kind of alarm? Well, it was a motion detector, so something was moving around in here. And they went through and they figured out that it was going off in the hall that we just came down to come up this direction. So they started looking around, and that big cabinet back there with the book on top and everything in it, which you'll be able to see as soon as you get in the door, I'm sorry, that had actually been opened. Now, the door behind it had been painted shut for about 20 years. The paint was thick. There's pictures on the little side table there that's got pictures of the paint chips. You can tell that it had been painted shut multiple times, multiple layers, and if you've ever tried to open a door or a window that's been painted shut, you know it's hard. But the door had been swung open and the case had been pushed forward in front of it. Nothing was missing out of the case. Nothing had moved except for that. And as Bennett was going through and taking inventory, making sure nothing had been stolen, he realized this cabinet had also been moved out. And you can actually see the scuff marks on the floor, both in front of that cabinet and down by the leg of this one. So he goes down to where that little dark dot is, right in front of it. And he thought, okay, well, that's weird. So he started looking at this cabinet, and he looked behind it. There's a certificate on the wall right there. That one right there. He found that behind this cabinet. It was covered in dust and dead bugs and all sorts of nasty stuff. It had been there for at least 10, 15 years. He said, okay, I'm going to have to worry about this. So he took that certificate and hid it in the library where we started, where the base camp was. And he called in a medium. Now, he didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew that he found this thing. There was nobody here, no visitors. He didn't tell anybody over the phone. And this medium comes in, walks in through the door that's right around the corner here, comes up to this door and stops dead. And she turns and she looks and she says, you were supposed to find something behind that cabinet. Well, he hadn't told her. He hadn't told anybody. He said, okay. And he went and got it out of the library, got the certificate out of the library, and held it out to her and said, here, I found this. And she said, yep, that's what you were supposed to find. You need to hang that up. Okay, that's fair. So he hung it up. Turns out it belonged to that lady right there, Miss Ray, Miss Maud Eleanor Ray.
Is that the mannequin behind you?
That's her clothes. That's part of her dress. But that's Miss Maud Eleanor Ray was the president of the Daughters of the American Revolution chapter during World War II. Now, if you don't know, this is the 100th anniversary of the foundation of that chapter. So she wanted her certificate to be put up there so that she could be celebrated right along with the chapter. And she still hangs out. I was actually working, I was on the floor out here working on the exhibit that's in there right now. And every once in a while I was laying there, and it's unusual for somebody to be laying on the floor and working on things. Every once in a while I'd feel her go and stare out at me. And stare out at me, and I could feel her looking at me. And finally I turned around and I said, I'm sorry, they're having a meeting in there. This is the only place I have to work. And she left me alone. She just wanted to know what I was doing. Now this is the point where we're going to go down into the basement. If anybody's not comfortable or does not want to.
I'm going.
All right. Downstairs, feel free to continue wandering around up here. Go back out there.
I'm gonna wait till.
Typical horror movie things.
Oh. Okay.
Exactly. That looks straight out.
I got no idea.
That looks straight out of a horror movie.
She basically just goes around murdering people in her school.
Yeah, that's her character. That's how she is.
I'm a skeleton.
Okay, I'll be right here.
I'm supposed to get
Minecraft.
Yes. Oh god. I make sure.
I might need that flashlight later on.
That looks straight out of a horror movie.
Yeah, it happened at least 4 times so far.
Oh yeah. So, you know, sometimes I don't want to
Yeah,
Excuse me, I
it's
need to squeeze
a little
through
tough.
so that I can get down and open this door. And be very, very careful. Watch your step. These are not good stairs.
Oh.
One more step here. Be careful.
You got it?
We want the basement here because it's a raised building. Whew. All right, we need somebody with a flashlight.
It smells weird in here.
Yeah.
That's because it's a basement.
I think that's the generator for
Oh,
lights.
okay, that's like.
Is that the generator for lights?
Nope.
What's that for?
Keep on going. I'll explain it here in a minute. You just want to make sure that everybody's down here first.
Same.
I can figure anything out but butts.
Can we sit down? What's going on?
Yeah, right? You'll never come out of your life, honey.
I'm gonna sit down.
Ooh, that feels nice.
Never said.
I have no idea.
Besides changing from Greg to Steel.
All right.
Yeah, it was Greg before. And then it changed to Steel.
Now, I bet that most of you have never seen one of those.
I have. I've seen that before.
You know what it is?
I think a generator of some sort.
That's a boiler. This gentleman here got it. Congratulations, you're at least as old as I am. The boiler is how the entire building used to get its heat. And we went to electric heat some number of years ago, and you can actually see that the floor has been built up. Because if you look over here, there's some steps and things. Now, when the paranormal investigators came down here in 2014, they had a nasty surprise. In fact, they nicknamed the ghost that was down here Mr. Nasty, because he was mean. He was mean as a snake. He would scratch, he would pull hair, he'd try to injure people, and his favorite target was blonde women. He hated blonde women. And for the longest time, they couldn't figure out why. And it took them a couple of years, but in between the investigations 2014 and the investigations of 2015, they figured out that he was a local pastor of an African American church, and his family had been targeted by the KKK. Now, they did this in a very sneaky way. There were 3 women, they were all blonde, which is why he hated blondes, and they pretended to make friends with his family. And so they brought them little things to eat, cookies, cakes, things like that. Used to hang out with him every once in a while, and so they, yes, sir?
What's the glowing light back there?
I don't know, but that's always been there. I think it's from a window coming in. Either that or there's a light set up back there for the occasion. But they, these women, the last time they saw the family, brought them a plate of goodies, things to share, and they poisoned his entire family. And they all died. So there was a reason that he was angry and afraid and hated blonde women. Now, it took him a couple of years, but they did figure out that one of the women was named Sophia, and a man that was involved in the KKK named Nick was actually the mastermind behind the poisoning. He's not here anymore. In 2016, they had a big crossing over ceremony, and Mr. Nasty was one of the ghosts that they helped cross over. We have not run into him since. We haven't had a problem with him being here. There's been no scratching, no hair pulling or anything like that. The basement's been pretty clear, yeah. Now, last night I was down here and taking some pictures, and I did get 3 orbs in one single shot. So there's still things down here, but not Mr. Nasty. Now, at this point, I will invite you to wander the grounds, go back in through the museum, take some pictures, look at some of the other things a little bit more closely. At about 5 minutes till the top of the hour, I'm going to come through and make sure everybody leaves the main building because I'll be starting the next tour shortly.